If you've been thinking about going to the gym, dieting, or more importantly, if you've tried in the past but didn't stick to it, it is likely that your brain has been cultivating mental excuses that are simply preventing you from reaching your ideal body. Now, whether it's losing the fat or building a muscular physique, these excuses they tend to be the same. You see, if you take a closer look, there are only a handful of excuses that we use to procrastinate, cheat the diet, or avoid going to the gym. Me first, when I started prioritizing my health a few years ago, I was big on procrastination. Even though now, when people see me in the gym almost every day at the same time, they kind of assume that it's always been that easy for me. Trust me, it wasn't. I had to physically and mentally drag myself to the gym while juggling between part-time work and full-time school. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because no one taught me how to go to the gym, how to talk to people there, how to take care of my nutrition, or the fundamentals of getting in shape. I wasn't the active sport type as a kid. I had to start from scratch, which allowed me to learn everything I needed to know. The first and most obvious mental barrier that you'll face is thinking that you don't have enough time. And I don't doubt the fact that your life is busy at the moment, maybe even overloaded with work, school, and responsibilities. I have no trouble believing that you're occupied most of the time. The thing is that you could have the time for exercise, although you can see it right now because you're not considering it as a priority. This is tricky, and it might even sound triggering, but it's not that you don't have the time. It's probably that you're not managing your time as well as you could when it comes to your fitness. When I was working a minimum wage job and going to school full time, I felt like I had no room to change anything about my fitness or lack of it. I felt like it wasn't even in my top 3 priorities. There was money, then getting good grades, and then whatever. But that's when I realized that after school and work, I'd usually spend my time scrolling on Instagram or watching Netflix episodes. More than that, in the morning, I'd just wake up 30 minutes before school started. It's not that I liked the time, it's just I wasn't making any time for it. Like, it wasn't even possible. I was just only using my time for school and work, not even considering my health. And that's exactly where you can deconstruct this excuse. If you don't have the time to train right now, it is most likely because you're considering it as an option, a bonus. It is not. Training is supposed to be non-negotiable, as important as your work. That's when you unlock new potential, because if fitness time is non-negotiable, you make it happen. Your brain will accept it and start treating it as a necessity. Because if humans are very good at procrastinating, they're also very good at making things possible under pressure. It is your duty to remind yourself that taking care of your body is mandatory, not optional. Now, this mental process isn't instantaneous. It's a process. Duh. Because even when planning your workout sessions on your calendar, after work, you're always going to have to face your own brain telling you that you don't have the time for it. It's always going to tell you, look, you have all these other things that are very important. Contracts to sign, meetings to arrange, projects to plan out, homeworks, but you'll have to ignore it. And you'll have to go to the gym regardless, because the truth is that you have control over your own schedule. Otherwise, it just means that your time and ultimately your health are being controlled by your work, your meetings, your clients, teachers, whatever it is. And I know it sounds unfair, because at the end of the day, not only are you running out of time, but you're also running out of motivation. That may be the most pernicious reason preventing you from cultivating a healthy lifestyle, where you exercise regularly and eat clean. Now, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to motivation. And I want to start by saying that motivation isn't what you think it is. And a big part of why you have a hard time sticking to healthy habits is because of this. Motivation was never built to last. It comes and goes. It's not reliable. And therefore, you should not bet on it to get you to the gym and eat clean. And I see that all the time with my clients. They feel motivated, and it magically disappears after 2 weeks of hitting the gym. And when that happens, their mind directly goes into thinking, if I'm not motivated, it means that what I'm doing is wrong. Otherwise, I'd be motivated. So exercise must not be for me. This reasoning is logical and yet profoundly flawed at the same time, because the motivation we're talking about here is only built to be short term. When you think about being fit, the six-pack, the big chest, flat stomach, whatever that means for you, your brain will store these thoughts and treat them as expectations. and it cultivates them in the back of your mind. And if there's one thing humans are very bad at, it's being patient. Your brain is just not designed for patience. It wants everything as fast as possible, which makes sense in a survival setting. Motivation is a booster. It is an energizing state that your brain triggers to help you reach a certain reward, goal, or state. It is good. The problem is not about motivation. The problem is about sustainability of this system. That's why you start going to the gym, motivated, and then you and your brain realize just how hard it will actually be to make the expectations that you have in your mind into reality. And your brain just ends up thinking that it's impossible as it doesn't see immediate results and doesn't receive instant gratification. Therefore, it just stops energizing you through motivation. You drop down and you stop going. And that's what's supposed to happen if you're relying on motivation. This will lead you to understand that motivation isn't sustainable and you'll never build your dream physique off of it. Now, to deconstruct this excuse of not having enough motivation, you'll have to find another source of energy to replace the leaky motivation. Now, nature is well balanced and it gifted you with another energizing system that's pretty much unlimited, but more concealed than the motivation you're used to experiencing. That is self-discipline. You don't need motivation to drive to a place, enter a building, and start lifting heavy stuff. You can use your mind and your limbs to do so. You'll get there. The problem is that if you haven't been cultivating self-discipline, your willpower is going to be a problem because willpower leads to self-control. And if you don't fully know and understand how it works, it will be very hard to tap into. But I made a whole other video about willpower, which you can find in the description. Now, what you have to take away from this is that if you bet on motivation to build your body, the journey is probably going to last a few days or weeks at most. Because if you want to make it sustainable, you'll have to learn how to use willpower and self-discipline effectively when it comes to your healthy habits. Now, we've said previously that motivation was a mobilizing state, which means that you get more energy when you're motivated. But the opposite is also true. And that's why the lack of energy is tricky to get rid of. First of all, there are two different types of energy: physical energy and mental energy. Mental fatigue is the result of a lot of decisions, a lot of thinking, planning, and stimulations. Whereas physical tiredness is simply because your body has been physically active and had to consume a lot of resources. And for a very long time, I was convinced that I was experiencing physical fatigue. And that was the reason why I couldn't get to the gym. It was because I was exhausted. But it wasn't. And it was way more about being mentally drained than it was about the body. Now, if you're rather sedentary and you don't use that much physical resources throughout the day, then the problem is more likely to be mental fatigue. Issue is that the mental fatigue is a constant state of exhaustion that is transferred onto the body. Plus, the only state in which you can recover from this generalized fatigue is sleep, which is highly mistreated. Now, here's where all of this gets more problematic. The less energy you use, the less energy you'll have, because your body has essentially evolved to develop a big power saving mode. That's the danger of being sedentary. You don't sleep well, so you don't move a lot. You're easily fatigued, so you move even less, and you end up not sleeping and being exhausted all the time. Now, your lack of energy is not an excuse not to engage in physical activity, because your lack of energy is the result of your lack of activity, not the origin of the pain. Now, if you use the lack of energy as your mental way out of telling yourself that the lack of energy is preventing you from training, you will simply never get out of this numb and burnout vicious cycle, as it would just amplify. The solution is to gradually escape from inertia. Gradually is the magic word here. You can't and you certainly don't want to force your way out of it. It will only make things worse. So many times I see people who are eager to get out of their exhaustion and start by doing 2-hour workouts just to end up even more worn out because they just can't handle that much pressure at this point in time. Your way out is the same thing that got you trapped in the first place: consistency. Because if you've been sedentary for a long time, you're very consistent at being sedentary. And you just have to turn that around to make it a habit of being active. Sounds dumb, but that's how it goes. And everything usually starts to get way better when you implement a proper sleep schedule. Start by conditioning yourself to go to bed and wake up roughly around the same time every day. This is simple advice, and yet 30% of the population has clinical symptoms of insomnia. Because the truth is that if you want to have more energy, you need to give your body the time it needs to recharge and recover. And this applies to both mental and physical fatigue. Only a consistent and respected sleep schedule will help you do that. The last thing on our agenda is confidence. And I'd say that it's the one that I hear the least, even though it may be one of the most powerful excuses that's preventing you from reaching your fitness goals. Most of the time, people either don't think about it or don't realize how much impact it has over their willingness to get in shape. And I need to be very straightforward here. Whatever it is that you want to start, maybe it's starting to go to the gym, cooking, improving social relationship interactions, you just won't be confident at the beginning. Confident is not something that you're either born with or without. Confidence is a trait that you acquire through repeated practice in one realm of life. For example, I've been training for years, 4 to 6 days per week. This equals to like 1,000 workouts. And sometimes when I'm trying a new exercise in the gym that I've never practiced before, I still don't feel fully confident. Not being confident is an indicator that you need more practice, not that you should stop whatever it is that you're starting. And I can't recall how many times I've heard clients tell me, I don't go to the gym because I don't feel confident there. Most of the time, the social environment is the problem because they're scared of being judged, looked at, and negatively perceived by other people. But the simple truth is that most people are just too focused on their own thing to pay any attention to you. More than that, most of the people that you see in the gym aren't confident either. And maybe it's not even about the gym. Maybe you're just not confident in social settings, and that's just fine too. I mean, I wasn't. When starting, I was convinced that everyone was looking at me and judging my poor technique. So I always wore headphones and a cap to narrow my focus by reducing my vision field. Lack of confidence is not a valid excuse for you not to build your physique because it's a prerequisite for learning. You cannot possibly feel confident because you haven't built the skills yet. Now here's another reason why lack of confidence simply cannot stop you from training. If you never start exercising, or you start and then you stop because you're scared of being judged by other people in the gym, they have control over you. Think about this for a second. It means that you're giving the power to other people for them to decide if you're going to be fit or not. This kind of mental patterns will lead you to a life full of what if and I wonder if, also known as regrets. You have to claim that power back. Start going to the gym and just realize that most people don't care about you, what you do in the gym, as long as you don't interfere with their own workouts. Remember this, your brain is always going to give you valid reasons not to do something because it's been designed for preservation. It will try and convince you to stay in the comfort zone, as it knows that it's the least intimidating place. But your mission is to say no to that. You cannot let those mental excuses dictate your behavior. Otherwise, you hand over control of your life to those very excuses. You owe it to yourself to just start. And as always, I hope this helps. Trust the process.